This incompetence will cost us millions. CEO Park Soo-jin slammed her laptop shut, her voice echoing through the 32nd floor of Seoul's most prestigious tech tower. The executive boardroom fell deadly silent as Park's Louboutin heels clicked against marble floors, her tailored Chanel suit radiating authority that made seasoned vice presidents shrink back. At 32, she commanded Korea's fastest-growing international tech company with an iron fist that had never known failure. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed Seoul's glittering skyline, but inside, tension crackled like electricity as her senior management team exchanged terrified glances. The conference table, worth more than most people's annual salaries, reflected the harsh fluorescent lighting that cast sharp shadows across worried executive faces. "Ma'am, the Nigerian client specifically requested cultural liaison support for," started her communications director, sweat beading on his forehead. "I don't care what they requested." Park whirled around, her perfectly styled bob whipping across her face. "We look like amateurs to international partners. This failure reflects directly on my leadership." Near the corner, a figure in navy cleaning coveralls quietly pushed a cart loaded with supplies, moving with practiced invisibility between mahogany furniture and crystal fixtures. Emeka Nwokolo had perfected the art of becoming background noise during his 6 months cleaning Korea's corporate elite spaces. At 28, his tall frame moved efficiently through expensive surroundings, dark skin making him stand out in homogeneous executive environments where he'd learned to keep his head down and ears closed to confidential conversations that could destroy careers. The cleaning cart's wheels squeaked softly against polished floors as Emeka navigated around leather chairs that cost more than his monthly salary. His movements were deliberate, respectful, designed to minimize disruption, while executives discussed millions in international contracts as casually as ordering coffee. "Security." Park's voice cut through the air like broken glass. "Why is maintenance staff here during confidential strategic meetings?" The cleaning cart froze mid-motion. Emeka straightened slowly, his gentle eyes meeting Park's furious gaze with quiet dignity that refused to apologize for existing in spaces where his presence challenged unspoken hierarchies. "I apologize, ma'am. I'll finish cleaning elsewhere immediately." Before Emeka could retreat with his cart, the boardroom doors burst open with explosive force. Jung Min-ho, the company's youngest intern, stumbled inside with panic written across his face, phone clutched desperately in trembling hands like a lifeline to his endangered career. "CEO Park, emergency client call from Lagos." Minho's voice cracked with desperation that made seasoned executives wince. "Our translator left sick with food poisoning, and the Okonkwo Group is threatening to terminate the entire African expansion contract within the next 10 minutes. Park's face went white as expensive foundation. The Okonkwo deal represented 40% of their international growth strategy. Losing it would devastate quarterly projections, destroy her reputation with the board of directors, and potentially cost her the CEO position she'd fought ruthlessly to achieve. Stock prices would plummet, investors would demand explanations. Her meteoric career could crash overnight. "Get me another qualified translator immediately." "It's 3 a.m. Nigerian time, ma'am. Everyone's unreachable, and they're demanding to speak now, or they're walking away from the partnership permanently. They've already threatened to sign with our Tokyo competitors." Through Minho's speakerphone, angry voices echoed across the boardroom in rapid Nigerian languages, growing more agitated by the second. Park stared at the phone like a ticking bomb, watching months of painstaking negotiations crumble in real time. Her executive team stood frozen, helpless witnesses to corporate disaster unfolding with each passing moment. The tension was suffocating. From the corner came a quiet, respectful voice. "Excuse me, ma'am." Every head turned toward Emeka, who had stepped forward from behind his cleaning cart with respectful but determined posture that surprised everyone in the room. "I couldn't help overhearing the communication barrier. I might be able to assist with the language difficulties." Park's eyes narrowed dangerously, her authority challenged by someone she considered invisible. "How dare you interrupt executive business discussions?" Minho looked between his furious CEO and the cleaning staff, desperation overriding corporate protocol as millions in contracts hung in the balance. Emeka moved closer to the speakerphone, his voice shifting from accented English to fluid, musical Nigerian languages. First came perfect Igbo pronunciation that made the angry voices on the phone suddenly stop mid-sentence. Then flawless Yoruba that carried cultural nuances missing from previous translation attempts. Finally, elegant Hausa that demonstrated mastery beyond basic vocabulary. The transformation was immediate and stunning. Hostile voices became welcoming. Agitated tones shifted to respectful engagement. Emeka seamlessly switched between languages based on each speaker's regional background, demonstrating cultural knowledge that went far beyond mere translation into authentic communication. Park's mouth fell open as her night cleaner demonstrated perfect mastery of multiple Nigerian languages within 30 seconds. His pronunciation flawless and his tone carrying cultural nuances that previous professional translators had missed entirely. Something in CEO Park's eyes shifted from rage to confusion as she watched her night cleaner transform before her eyes, and she realized this conversation would change everything she thought she knew about the invisible people around her. With no other options and millions at stake, Park gestured sharply at the phone with barely controlled desperation. Fix this situation, now. Emeka's entire demeanor transformed as he took control of the international call. His voice shifted to crisp, professional English before flowing into elegant Nigerian languages that made the clients audibly relax on the other end. The angry tension dissolved as Emeka effortlessly switched between languages based on each speaker's regional background, demonstrating cultural knowledge that went far beyond basic translation skills. "Gentlemen, I understand your frustration with the communication delays," Emeka said in perfect English before switching to flowing African languages. "Let me address your specific concerns about the Lagos implementation timeline and cultural integration protocols." Park watched in stunned silence as her cleaner discussed complex technical specifications using advanced business terminology in multiple Nigerian languages. He explained software integration details, negotiated contract clauses with sophisticated legal understanding, and built cultural bridges through storytelling techniques that had the clients laughing and engaging enthusiastically for the first time in weeks. Other employees gathered at the boardroom's glass walls, witnessing an impossible scene unfolding before their eyes. Their company's biggest international crisis being resolved by a man they'd never noticed before tonight. Executives pressed against the glass, straining to understand how their night cleaning staff possessed such extraordinary capabilities. Emeka maintained his humble posture throughout the conversation, addressing the Nigerian executives with respect, while seamlessly managing complex power dynamics that had frustrated months of previous negotiations. His cultural understanding went beyond language into business etiquette, family honor systems, and economic traditions that previous negotiations had completely ignored. "The partnership structure you're proposing honors both Korean technological efficiency and Nigerian collaborative business traditions," Emeka continued, weaving cultural complements that made the clients beam with pride and renewed enthusiasm. Within 20 minutes, the Okonkwo Group had not only renewed their commitment, but expanded their original contract by 30%, adding additional markets and increased financial commitments. As Emeka concluded the call with traditional farewell blessings in each language, the boardroom erupted in whispered amazement and disbelief. Park stared at her cleaning staff with completely altered perception, her executive worldview cracking like fractured glass under impossible reality. "My office. Now." Park's voice carried authority mixed with confusion as she led Emeka toward her private executive suite, her mind racing with questions that challenged everything she thought she knew about merit and capability. The corner office screamed power and success, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Gangnam District's glittering skyline, minimalist Danish furniture worth more than most annual salaries, and awards showcasing Park's meteoric rise through Korean corporate hierarchy. Degrees from Seoul National University lined the walls alongside photographs with government ministers and international business leaders. Emeka stood quietly in the center, his cleaning uniform creating stark contrast against luxury surroundings that represented everything he'd been excluded from accessing. "Who are you really?" Park demanded, closing the door behind them and activating privacy settings that blocked external observation. Emeka met her gaze steadily, his voice calm and factual. Dr. Emeka Nwokolo, PhD in computational linguistics from the University of Lagos, specializing in cross-cultural business communication and African language preservation methodologies. Park's perfectly controlled expression shattered like expensive crystal. That's completely impossible. Former Associate Professor of African Languages and Literature at Lagos Business School. Published researcher in international business linguistics with 43 peer-reviewed papers. Consultant for multinational corporations across West Africa, including Shell, Unilever, and Microsoft's African Expansion Division. Emeka's voice remained calm, presenting facts without defensiveness. Until I moved to Seoul 18 months ago seeking new opportunities. Park grabbed her phone, fingers flying across the screen as she searched academic databases with growing desperation. Her face grew pale as she found his publications. Digital Preservation of Indigenous Nigerian Languages, Cultural Linguistics and International Business, Barriers to African Academic Integration in Asian Markets. Conference presentations at universities across 3 continents. Citations in hundreds of other research papers. Academic awards from international linguistic societies. You hold a doctorate from one of Africa's most prestigious universities. Published groundbreaking research, and you're cleaning my offices at night? Because Korean universities rejected my applications 3 times despite qualifications that exceed their requirements. Visa restrictions for academic positions that somehow don't apply to service work. Language barriers that apparently don't include speaking 8 languages fluently. No bitterness colored his words. Just quiet statement of systematic facts. Cleaning work provides honest income while I support my family and continue research independently. Park scrolled through his credentials with growing shock and shame. International awards for academic excellence. Guest lectureships at Harvard and Oxford. Research grants from UNESCO. Her cleaning staff possessed more academic qualifications than half her senior management team, more international experience than her entire communications division. Your expertise could revolutionize our entire international communications strategy and African market penetration. That expertise has been walking these halls for 6 months. But advanced degrees apparently don't show through janitor uniforms or dark skin in Korean corporate environments. What CEO Park discovered next would shatter every assumption she'd made about merit, opportunity, and the incredible talent hidden in plain sight throughout her company. If this story about hidden brilliance defeating corporate prejudice is giving you chills, smash that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will completely transform how you think about judging people by their job titles. Trust me, this CEO's response will restore your faith in human decency. I want to offer you Director of International Communications immediately. 5 times your current salary, full executive benefits, company apartment in Gangnam, stock options, and international travel allowances. Park spoke quickly, her business instincts recognizing extraordinary talent when corporate blindness finally cleared. She outlined compensation packages that would transform Emeka's life overnight, watching his face for the gratitude and excitement she expected from such a generous offer. Instead, Emeka paused thoughtfully, considering her words with the careful deliberation of someone accustomed to analyzing complex situations. I appreciate the generous offer, Ms. Park, but I have specific conditions that must be met. The power dynamic shifted complete. No one dictated terms to CEO Park Soo-jin in her own office, yet here stood her night cleaner, negotiating like an equal with confidence that suggested extensive experience in high-stakes business discussions. First, comprehensive review of hiring practices for all immigrant workers currently employed by this company. Second, establishment of a skills assessment program that evaluates capability regardless of current position or appearance. Third, mandatory cultural sensitivity training for all management staff. Fourth, establishment of a scholarship fund for other overqualified service workers seeking professional advancement opportunities. Park's shock deepened with each demand. This wasn't just a job negotiation, it was systematic social reform presented with the thoroughness of someone who understood organizational change theory. You've researched this situation extensively. Emeka nodded calmly, producing a small notebook filled with meticulous research. I know Ibrahim in security holds an engineering degree from Cairo University, but was rejected from technical positions. Maria in food service has an MBA from São Paulo but couldn't access business roles. Chen in maintenance was a chemistry professor in Beijing before visa complications forced career changes. We're not isolated cases, Ms. Park. We represent a pattern of systematic talent waste. He opened the notebook, revealing charts tracking hiring discrimination, financial analysis showing talent waste costs, and detailed employee backgrounds documenting qualification mismatches throughout the company. Months of careful documentation during night cleaning shifts had produced evidence of institutional failures. This encounter wasn't accidental. I've been documenting institutional barriers while cleaning offices, where executives discuss diversity initiatives they never actually implement. Tonight's crisis simply provided the opportunity to demonstrate what you've been systematically overlooking. Park realized she hadn't just met a brilliant cleaner, she'd walked directly into a masterfully orchestrated plan to expose the systemic waste of human potential in corporate Korea. What CEO Park was about to learn was that she hadn't just met a brilliant cleaner. She'd walked directly into a masterfully orchestrated plan to expose the systemic waste of human potential in corporate Korea. 3 months later, Park stood in the same boardroom where everything had changed, but now the space buzzed with dramatically different energy. Charts covered conference tables showing unprecedented international growth figures, and voices speaking multiple languages filled executive floors that had once echoed with monolingual homogeneity and cultural isolation. Emeka Nwokolo, now Director of Global Communications, presented quarterly results to the board of directors with confidence that commanded respect. His tailored Armani suit replaced cleaning coveralls, but his humble confidence remained unchanged as he outlined the company's expanded presence across 16 African markets that competitors had failed to penetrate. Our Nigerian partnerships have exceeded initial projections by 300%, Emeka reported in fluent Korean, his linguistic abilities now showcased rather than hidden behind service work. Client satisfaction rates reached 94% after implementing culturally informed communication strategies that previous approaches had completely missed. Around the polished conference table sat other transformed employees whose talents had been hiding in plain sight. Ibrahim now headed the engineering innovation team, bringing Middle Eastern technical expertise that revolutionized their products. Maria directed international business development, leveraging her South American market knowledge. Chen led the company's new research division, applying academic expertise that had been wasted in maintenance work. Park had discovered that her service staff included more advanced degrees than some tech startups possessed in their entire workforce. The talent had been there all along, invisible only to eyes trained to dismiss people based on their current circumstances, rather than actual capabilities. Seoul Business Weekly featured their transformation as Korea's fastest diversity success story of the decade. International investors praised the company's revolutionary approach to talent recognition, and corporate headhunters struggled to understand how Park had identified such extraordinary capabilities so quickly and effectively. The truth remained their competitive secret. Talent had been hiding in plain sight, invisible only to systems designed to maintain artificial hierarchies rather than recognize actual merit. Other Korean companies began implementing similar assessment programs, and government officials requested consultations about policy changes, supporting skilled immigrant integration throughout Korean society. The company's annual shareholder meeting drew international attention as Emeka presented their African expansion's success to 400 investors and media representatives from across Asia, Europe, and America. Ladies and gentlemen, our unprecedented growth represents more than financial success. It demonstrates what becomes possible when organizations commit to recognizing that excellence exists everywhere, often in forms that challenge our preconceptions. Standing ovation erupted across the packed auditorium as Emeka outlined sustainable partnerships built through authentic cultural understanding rather than colonial business approaches that had caused other companies to fail spectacularly in African markets. Park watched from the side stage, remembering the night she'd nearly had security remove the man now receiving acclaim from Korea's most influential business leaders and international media outlets. 6 months ago, I worked nights cleaning these offices, Emeka continued, his voice carrying clearly across the packed auditorium. Not because I lacked qualifications, but because systems existed that prevented qualified people from accessing opportunities matching their actual capabilities and experience. He gestured toward the diverse audience that now included representatives from universities, government agencies, and companies across multiple industries. Today, this company leads Korea in African market penetration because CEO Park Soo-jin possessed the extraordinary courage to acknowledge that her assumptions about merit were preventing organizational excellence. The cameras focused on Park as she stepped forward, her voice steady despite the emotional weight of public acknowledgement. The greatest business decision I ever made was learning to see the extraordinary people who were already here, waiting for someone to notice their potential. 1 year later, the transformation rippled far beyond corporate walls into Korean society itself. Universities had established partnership programs with qualified immigrant professionals, and employment policies across multiple industries shifted towards skill-based assessment rather than credential discrimination or appearance bias. Emeka's family visited from Lagos, watching with immense pride as their son addressed international business conferences about sustainable, cross-cultural partnerships and inclusive business practices. His parents, both university professors, marveled at seeing their child honored as a bridge between continents and cultures. Park and Emeka had developed genuine friendship built on mutual respect and shared vision for systemic change that extended beyond corporate profits. Their collaboration became a case study taught in business schools across Asia, demonstrating how individual courage to challenge assumptions could transform entire organizational cultures and social systems. Excellence was always present in our company, Park reflected during a joint interview with BBC World Service that reached millions globally. We simply had to learn how to recognize it beyond surface appearances and artificial barriers. The company now led Korea in African market development, with offices in 12 countries and partnerships spanning the continent. More importantly, they'd proven that prosperity followed naturally when organizations committed to seeing human potential rather than maintaining exclusionary systems. Their success sparked government policy reviews, university admission reforms, and corporate hiring practice changes throughout Korea. International business schools invited them to speak about sustainable diversity practices that generated measurable results rather than symbolic gestures. Change had started with one conversation between a CEO willing to listen and a cleaner brave enough to speak, but its impact spread across industries, policies, and lives throughout Korea and beyond into international business practices. Individual dignity had reshaped an entire culture, proving that sometimes the most powerful weapon against systemic injustice is simply refusing to accept that invisible people must remain unseen and undervalued. If this incredible story of how a night cleaner's courage transformed Korea's corporate culture moved you as much as it moved me, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more stories that prove change is possible. We share these powerful true stories because we believe that transformation starts with ordinary people having extraordinary courage to challenge the systems that keep talent invisible and potential unrealized. What would you have done in Emeka's position? Would you have spoken up, despite the risk to your job security, or stayed silent to protect your income? Tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that their voice matters and their talents deserve recognition. Because sometimes, the most powerful revolution begins with one person refusing to accept that brilliance should be judged by the uniform someone wears, rather than the mind they possess and the contributions they can make to our shared world.